The day the whole class saw Bianca Vale faking her grades, she was sitting in the front row with a pink highlighter between her teeth, smiling at the tutor like the semester had been built for her personally. Behind her, the projector showed my post on the course discussion board. For anyone confused about Assessment 3, I uploaded the official rubric from the faculty handbook with the marking criteria highlighted. Hope this helps before resubmission closes. That was all I wrote. No accusation, no names, no dramatic confession dragged into daylight. Just the rubric. The same rubric our tutor, Mr. Hollis, had insisted was too technical for students to worry about. The same rubric Bianca somehow knew how to perform around while the rest of us guessed. The same rubric that proved her polished distinction grade essays were missing half the required criteria. At first, nobody understood. Students opened their laptops, clicked the file, frowned at the waiting table, then looked slowly at the sample feedback Mr. Hollis had released the week before, where Bianca's paper had been praised for excellent evidence integration, even though the rubric demanded 6 peer-reviewed sources and her reference list had 2 blog posts, 1 TED Talk, and a textbook chapter copied wrong. The room went quiet in layers. 1 whisper near the back. 1 sharp inhale beside me. 1 chair leg scraping. Then the class representative, Amara, raised her hand without waiting to be called on and asked, "Sir, why were we marked against different criteria than Bianca?" Bianca's smile froze around the highlighter. Mr. Hollis went pale. And I, who had died once under the weight of a grade she stole with his help, looked at the screen and thought, there it is. Not revenge dressed as fire. Revenge dressed as a PDF. 5 weeks earlier, I woke up on the floor of my dorm room with printer paper stuck to my cheek and the sound of my own first life humiliation still ringing in my ears. In that life, I had been 20, exhausted, and stupid enough to believe that fairness was automatic if you worked hard in silence. I was studying education at Westcott College, trying to keep my merit scholarship while commuting to weekend shifts at a bakery and tutoring Year 9 students for rent money. The subject that ruined me was Edict 211, assessment, feedback, and learning design, which was darkly funny in the way disasters sometimes are. Our tutor, Mr. Hollis, had a favorite before the first week ended.
Bianca Vale.
Of course her name was Bianca Vale. It sounded like a girl born holding a scholarship certificate. She had glossy black hair, pearl clips, perfect attendance, and the ability to say, "I'm just passionate about pedagogy," with a straight face while misusing every second term. Mr. Hollis adored her because she laughed at his jokes, stayed after class, and called him one of the only tutors who actually sees student potential. The rest of us got vague feedback, missing marks, and comments like, "needs stronger criticality." Bianca got extensions without asking, resubmission hints before tasks were released, and grades so inflated they should have required a weather warning. In my first life, I questioned one of those grades after discovering the official rubric buried in the faculty handbook. 3 days later, my own assignment was flagged for rubric manipulation because someone uploaded a fake marking guide from my account to the class forum.
Bianca cried.
Mr. Hollis said I was undermining student trust. The misconduct panel called my behavior disruptive to learning culture. My scholarship review failed by 2 points. Bianca won the Practicum Placement Award with a portfolio I later learned had been quietly corrected by him. So when I opened my eyes in the second life and saw the calendar blinking Monday, April 7th, 5 weeks before assessment, 3 marks were finalized, I did not scream. I lay very still. The room smelled like instant coffee, cold laundry, and the highlighter ink from the notes scattered around me. My laptop was open to the exact page of the faculty handbook I had found too late the first time, Appendix C, Edict 211 Analytical Response Rubric. It listed criteria Mr. Hollis had never given us. Source quality worth 20%. Alignment with learning outcomes worth 25. Feedback application worth 15. Critical comparison of assessment models worth 20. Professional communication worth 10. Academic integrity worth 10. In class, he had reduced that to 3 vague categories: clarity, insight, and effort. Effort. The most dangerous word a bias marker can use, because effort is invisible until someone with power decides whose face it wears. I touched the laptop screen as if the rubric might vanish. Then I laughed once, badly, because the universe had returned me not to an exam, not to a stolen object, not to a dramatic meeting, but to a document. A boring, beautiful document with page numbers and faculty approval dates. I downloaded it, saved it under 4 names, emailed it to myself, and printed 2 copies before breakfast. The printer jammed halfway through, because even miracles apparently require maintenance. The first rule of my second life was simple: never accuse before the standard is visible. In the first life, I had done what honest students do when confused. I asked privately, "Can we see the detailed rubric?" I emailed Mr. Hollis after Bianca received 94 on a paper that would not have passed a year 12 research task. He replied, "Students often become over-focused on criteria and lose authentic voice." When I pushed again, he called me into a meeting and told me my tone suggested competitiveness rather than curiosity. I cried, which confirmed a story before I had even understood the story existed. This time, I did nothing that could be trimmed into hysteria. I attended class. I asked normal questions. I smiled when Bianca performed brilliance. I took notes on every inconsistency. When Mr. Hollis said peer-reviewed sources were encouraged but not essential, I copied the sentence with the date, then highlighted the rubric line that said minimum 6 scholarly sources required for credit or above. When he told Marco not to worry about linking to learning outcomes because that's more of a postgraduate concern, I saved the slide where the task description required outcome alignment. When he praised Bianca's draft for clear practical insight after she admitted she had not read the required chapter, I wrote that down too. Not emotionally. Not with flames in the margin. Just facts. Facts are not loud at first. They are seeds. Bianca noticed me watching by the end of week 1. She was not unintelligent. That was part of the problem. Like many academic pets, she was clever enough to play the room and lazy enough to resent anyone who learned the material properly. She slid into the seat beside me before tutorial, placing her iced matcha between our laptops like an offering. "Marin," she said, stretching my name into something almost affectionate. "You've been quiet lately." In the first life, I would have been flattered she noticed. Bianca, noticing you felt like being chosen by the popular page of the course website. "I'm tired," I said.
Same.
"Hollis is pushing us so hard." I looked at her. He had personally extended her draft conference by 20 minutes while cutting everyone else off at 7. "Very hard." She smiled, sensing sarcasm but not sure how sharp it was. "You know, if you're stressed about marks, I can send you my assessment too, just to see structure." There it was, the bait she had used before. In the first life, she sent me her paper after marks came out, not to help, but to prove her grade deserved its throne. I pointed out missing criteria. She told Hollis I was obsessing over her work, and the fake rubric appeared from my account days later. This time, I closed my notebook. "No thanks." Her eyebrows lifted. "Seriously? It got 94. Then keep it safe." The smile thinned. "You don't have to be weird." I packed my pen slowly. "I'm not. I just don't use other students' marked work as guidance." Behind us, Marco made a small choking sound that might have been a laugh. Bianca turned just enough to make him look at his phone. Mr. Hollis's favoritism worked because it rarely looked like a single obvious crime. It was 1,000 little tilts. Bianca's late submissions were reflective maturity. Ours were time management concerns. Bianca's personal anecdotes were authentic voice. Ours were insufficient evidence. Bianca's vague opinions were emerging professional judgment. Ours were unsupported claims. He did not hand her an envelope of marks while villains laughed in a dark room. He simply translated her weaknesses into strengths and our strengths into requirements we had somehow failed. The class felt it, but feeling unfairness is not the same as proving it. Students whispered in the cafe, complained in group chats, and then fell silent when grades arrived because nobody wanted to seem bitter. That silence had protected him in the first life. This time, I decided not to ask people to be brave before they had something solid to stand on. I created a private spreadsheet only I could see. Column Date. Column B, Statement by Tutor. Column C, Official Rubric Contradiction. Column D, Witness if any. It looked obsessive. Maybe it was. But obsession and survival often wear the same shoes from a distance. By Friday, I had 11 entries. By the following Monday, I had 17 and a screenshot of Bianca posting in the group chat. Hollis said not to stress about sources if our personal reflection is strong. Under it, students replied with relief. I saved the screenshot and did not correct them yet. Timing mattered. If I posted the rubric too early, Mr. Hollis could reframe it, adjust his language, and make me look pedantic. If I posted it too late, Bianca's grade would harden into history. The opportunity came through resubmission policy. Assessment 3 was a major analytical response worth 40%. Mr. Hollis returned draft feedback 2 weeks before final submission and allowed minor resubmission adjustments during a 48-hour window after preliminary marks were uploaded. It sounded generous, but in practice it let him steer selected students while leaving the rest of us guessing. In the first life, Bianca received a preliminary 92 with comments so specific they were practically editing instructions. Strengthen paragraph 3 by naming formative assessment. Add one source after personal anecdote. Emphasize equity in conclusion. My draft received needs deeper analysis. That was it. 3 words. I rewrote 12 pages in panic, submitted late, and got 68. Bianca got 97. This time, before draft feedback week, I visited the academic skills office. Not to complain. To ask for guidance on interpreting official criteria. The advisor, Miss Trent, was a woman with silver hair, purple glasses, and the brisk energy of someone who had watched too many marking disasters pretend to be misunderstandings. I brought the faculty rubric, the task description, and one of Mr. Hollis's generic slides. She frowned after 2 minutes. This slide is not sufficient for a 40% task. I kept my face neutral. Should students have access to the full rubric? Yes, she said immediately. It is faculty policy. I asked if the handbook rubric was safe to share with classmates. She looked at me over her glasses. It is a public document.
Public.
Another ordinary word that felt like a weapon finally placed in the right hand. I still did not post it that day. Instead, I emailed Mr. Hollis in a tone so polite it could have worn gloves. Hi, Mr. Hollis. I found the detailed rubric in the faculty handbook and wanted to confirm it applies to Assessment 3. Since several students are asking about expectations, would you prefer to upload it to the course page, or is it okay if we refer to it ourselves? In the first life, I had asked this privately with fear in every sentence. This time, I copied the subject coordinator, Dr. Sun, because faculty policy was not a secret whispered under a desk. Mr. Hollis replied 6 hours later at 11:48 p.m. Dear Marin, while Appendix C is technically related, I discourage students from circulating materials without tutor context, as this may cause confusion. We have discussed expectations sufficiently in class. No direct answer. Beautiful. I forwarded the reply to my evidence folder and slept better than I had in years, which is to say I woke up only twice instead of 6 times. Draft feedback week arrived like a slow storm. Students refreshed the portal obsessively. Mr. Hollis released feedback in batches, which created a hierarchy of anxiety before marks even appeared. Bianca got hers first, of course. She announced it in the cafe by pretending not to announce it. Oh, thank God. He said mine is basically there, she sighed, loud enough for 3 tables. I was so worried because I only had 4 sources. Marco looked up sharply. 4? He told me my 6 weren't enough. Bianca shrugged, dipping a chip into aioli. Maybe it depends how you use them. There was the whole system in one sentence. Maybe it depends. Depends on what? On Bianca's face? On her after-class meetings? On whether she laughed when Hollis compared teaching to jazz. I opened my laptop and checked my own feedback. Needs stronger synthesis. 2 words this time, apparently an improvement. Preliminary mark, 71. I felt the old panic rise, hot and humiliating. Rebirth did not make unfair grades painless. My body remembered losing everything by 2 points. For 10 minutes, I sat in the bathroom and breathed through the urge to burn the whole course page down. Then I washed my face, returned to the cafe, and asked Marco, Amara, and 2 others if they would compare feedback language with me for study purposes. Not grades, I said. Just criteria. They agreed because everyone was scared enough to prefer shared confusion over private shame. By evening, 6 students had sent me comments. Bianca's comments were the only ones that referenced exact rubric categories. Everyone else got fog. That night, I built the post. The old me would have written too much, explaining why transparency mattered, why students deserved criteria, why fairness could not depend on private favor. The reborn me had learned that long explanations give bad actors more surface area to attack. I wrote 2 sentences. Then I attached the rubric PDF, the handbook link, and a 1-page summary table mapping each criterion to the task description. I did not mention Mr. Hollis. I did not mention Bianca. I did not mention grades. I saved it as a draft on the course discussion board and scheduled nothing. My finger hovered over post for so long the laptop dimmed. What if he accused me again? What if Bianca cried again? What if Dr. Sun preferred quiet over fairness? What if the class resented me for making everyone's marks uncertain? Then my phone buzzed. It was Bianca, sending a photo of her feedback with the top cropped off, just enough to show the praise and hide the missing criteria. In case you change your mind and want a model before resubmission. I know you care a lot. I stared at the phrase. I know you care a lot. In the first life, she used my caring as motive. Too ambitious. Too intense. Too unwilling to accept another girl's success. This time, I clicked post. The rubric went live at 10:03 p.m.
No fireworks.
Just a file appearing where everyone could read it. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is make the rule visible. The group chat detonated before midnight. Not dramatically at first. Amara wrote, "Wait, source quality is 20%. Marco replied, "Then why did my feedback say source count wasn't the issue?" Someone else wrote, "Professional communication is only 10, but my whole comment was about style." Then the screenshot started. Students compared rubric lines with feedback comments and preliminary marks, and the pattern emerged faster than I expected because unfairness had been waiting for language. He told me not to focus on learning outcomes. Mine lost marks for no personal reflection, but that isn't a criterion? Bianca said he said sources weren't essential. Why does Bianca's feedback literally mention the rubric when ours doesn't? I watched messages scroll until my hands shook. Not victory.
Fear.
Truth moving through a crowd becomes powerful, but power is unstable before it has direction. At 12:17, Mr. Hollis posted an announcement. Students are reminded not to circulate assessment materials without tutor guidance. Please avoid unhelpful comparison, which may compromise your learning. Too late. The word comparison had become oxygen. By morning, Amara had emailed Dr. Sun requesting clarification on whether the official rubric applied to all students equally. She copied the entire class. That was the pattern interruption I had not predicted. I posted the rubric. Amara made it collective. The tutorial the next day felt like entering a theater after the audience had read the script. Mr. Hollis arrived 5 minutes late, which he had never done before, carrying a coffee he did not drink. Bianca sat in the front row, pink highlighter between her teeth, trying to look bored by the tension. Her confidence had always relied on the rest of us being uncertain separately. Now uncertainty had become a room. The projector automatically showed the discussion board because he had left the course page open. My rubric post sat at the top, already viewed 86 times. Mr. Hollis clicked away too quickly, which made 3 people whisper. Then Amara raised her hand. "Before we start, can you confirm whether the Appendix C rubric is the marking rubric for Assessment 3? Mr. Hollis smiled with his mouth only. "We will not derail class with procedural anxiety." Marco said, "It's worth 40%. Someone behind me muttered, "That's not anxiety." Bianca turned around. "Can we not turn this into a witch hunt? Some of us actually want to learn." It was a strong line. She delivered it with wounded elegance. In the first life, it would have worked, but the rubric was open on half the laptops in the room, and her own sample feedback had already become the class's favorite piece of accidental evidence. Amara did not look at Bianca. She looked at the tutor. We want to learn what we are being marked on. That sentence changed everything. It was too reasonable to punish. Mr. Hollis tried to regain control by turning the question into theory. Rubrics are guides, not cages, he said, pacing near the whiteboard. Professional judgment matters. A few weeks earlier, everyone might have nodded. Now Marco read directly from the PDF. Faculty policy says all summative assessments must be marked against published criteria. Mr. Hollis's face tightened. Marco, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but you may be misunderstanding the context.
Then explain it, Amara said.
Another pattern interruption. Quiet Amara, who usually apologized before asking where the printer was, had found a voice made of policy. Mr. Hollis looked toward Bianca, not obviously enough for a formal complaint, but enough for the room to see where he expected support. Bianca took the cue. Honestly, I think people are upset because some students did well and others didn't. That doesn't mean the marking is fake.
Fake.
She should not have used that word. It landed too close to what everyone was thinking. I opened my laptop, clicked the sample feedback file Mr. Hollis had released with Bianca's name removed, but not well enough, because the document properties still said Bianca_Veil_assessment3_feedback docs, and raised my hand. My pulse hammered. Can I ask about the sample feedback, then? Mr. Hollis went still. What about it? It praises evidence integration, but the rubric requires 6 scholarly sources for the top bands. The sample only has 4 references, and 2 aren't scholarly. How would that meet the criterion? The room did not breathe. Bianca pulled the highlighter from her mouth slowly. Her eyes found mine, and for a second I saw the panic under the polish. Not guilt.
Panic.
There is a difference. Guilt asks, what have I done? Panic asks who can still be blamed. Mr. Hollis said, the sample was illustrative, not exhaustive. Amara replied, but it received a distinction range comment. You do not know the mark attached to that sample. Bianca made the mistake of speaking. It wasn't even mine. Every head turned toward her. She realized too late that nobody had said it was. The projector hummed. Somewhere in the corridor, a trolley squeaked past. Marco leaned forward. How do you know? Bianca laughed, but it came out flat. Because everyone is acting like it is. I clicked the document properties open and mirrored my screen before courage could evaporate. Bianca_Veil_assessment3_feedback docs. Modified by Daniel Hollis. Created May 6th. The class stared. Mr. Hollis stepped toward my desk. Marin, stop sharing your screen.
I did.
Immediately. That mattered. I did not fight him in the moment. I had shown enough. The image had already moved into 20 memories, 6 screenshots, and 1 group chat before the projector went dark. Bianca's face flushed deep red. This is harassment, she said, but her voice shook. Mr. Hollis told us to take a 10-minute break. Nobody moved. During the break, Bianca cornered me near the vending machines, which felt almost too symbolic. In the first life, she had hugged me there after my misconduct meeting, whispering, I wish you hadn't made it so hard for everyone. This time, she did not hug me. She stood close enough for her perfume to sting and said, You're obsessed. I looked at the reflection of us in the vending machine glass, her crisp white blouse, my old cardigan, both of us framed by rows of chocolate bars. With the rubric? With me. You're the one whose feedback file has your name in it. Her eyes narrowed. Do you think people will love you for this? They'll use you, and then call you dramatic. Hollis will be fine. I'll be fine. You'll be the girl who made everyone's grades messy. The frightening part was that she might have been right. Exposing unfairness does not guarantee gratitude. Sometimes people resent the person who proves the game was rigged because now they have to replay it tired. But I had already died once as the girl who stayed polite until the lie matured. Maybe, I said. But your grade still has to survive the criteria. She stepped closer. You don't know anything about my grade. Then why are you shaking? Her hand clenched around the highlighter so hard the cap cracked. She looked down at it, startled. For the first time since I had known her, Bianca had broken something she could not turn into charm. When class resumed, Dr. Sun was there. That was the second unplanned miracle, though later I learned Amara had emailed her during the break with the screenshot attached. Dr. Sun was small, severe, and famous for writing feedback that made students feel both destroyed and improved. She stood at the front while Mr. Hollis hovered near the computer. I understand there is confusion regarding Assessment 3 criteria, she said. Confusion was a diplomatic word, but in academic settings diplomacy often carries knives. To clarify, Appendix C is the official rubric. It applies to all submissions. The room shifted. Bianca looked at Mr. Hollis. He looked at the floor. Dr. Sun continued, all preliminary feedback and marks will be reviewed for alignment. The resubmission window is paused. Students should not compare marks publicly, but you are entitled to consistent criteria. She did not look at me when she said it. That was good. This was no longer my personal complaint. It had become policy moving through the room with shoes on. Then she asked Mr. Hollis to continue the tutorial with the rubric visible. He had to teach the class from the document he had tried to bury. I almost felt sorry for him when he highlighted source quality with a trembling cursor. Almost. The review took 4 days. 4 days can stretch like a semester when everyone is waiting to learn whether their grades are real. Students became strange. Marco made color-coded comparison charts. Amara organized a shared but anonymous feedback bank. 2 people cried in the library because their preliminary marks had been lower than they should have been. One student discovered she had lost marks for not including personal teaching philosophy, which did not appear anywhere in the task. Another found that her learning outcome alignment had been ignored entirely. As for Bianca, she vanished from the cafe, the front row, and the group chat. Her silence was so complete it became its own announcement. Mr. Hollis sent no messages except one bland post. Please direct assessment questions to Dr. Sun during review. His profile photo disappeared from the tutor page by Friday afternoon. That was when I realized the investigation had moved beyond inconsistent marking. Dr. Sun had likely found private draft comments, grade adjustments, maybe meetings not offered to others. In the first life, I had suspected he was helping Bianca because I was bitter. In the second, the rubric had given bitterness a measuring instrument. On Monday, Dr. Sun held a special lecture in the largest seminar room. Attendance was optional. Everyone came. Even students from the other tutorial streams came because scandal travels faster than lecture recordings. Dr. Sun did not dramatize. She never did. She opened with a slide titled, Assessment 3 Review Outcomes. My stomach twisted. The faculty has completed an initial moderation of preliminary marks across Mr. Hollis's tutorial group, she said. Several marks were not aligned with the published rubric. These marks will be adjusted. Some students will receive increases. Some marks will remain unchanged. One preliminary mark has been withdrawn pending academic integrity and process review.
1.
Nobody needed the name, but Bianca made the mistake of closing her laptop too loudly. Heads turned. Dr. Sun kept reading. All students will receive revised feedback from an independent marker. Mr. Hollis will not be involved in final grading. A low murmur rose. Not joyful exactly, more like air returning to lungs. My own preliminary 71 became an 86 2 days later, with detailed comments on my source integration, outcome alignment, and critical comparison. I stared at the mark until tears blurred it. Not because 86 was perfect, because it was mine, measured against the thing everyone could see. Bianca's withdrawn mark became the class's central mystery, though the facts emerged in pieces. Her paper had not merely been overmarked. It had been edited through private feedback no other student received, then praised for criteria it did not meet, then uploaded as an anonymous sample to normalize distinction-level comments outside the rubric. Worse, the review found her submitted reflection included passages from a teaching blog without citation, not enough for a dramatic expulsion, but enough to trigger an integrity warning when combined with the process irregularities. Bianca told people she was being targeted because she had a mentoring relationship with Mr. Hollis. That phrase lasted exactly 6 hours before Amara replied in the group chat, "Mentoring is not a marking criterion." It became a meme by dinner. I did not join in. Public mockery has a way of making even guilty people look like victims if it gets too hungry. I wanted correction, not a bonfire. Still, when Bianca walked into class the next week and sat in the back row, no pink highlighter, no pearl clips, no front row throne, I felt something unclench in me that had been tight since the first Life's hearing. She was still there. Not destroyed. Just no longer floating above the criteria everyone else had to climb. Mr. Hollis resigned from tutoring before final grades were released. The official email called it a staffing adjustment. The unofficial version was richer. Complaint review, conflict of interest, improper feedback support, failure to apply faculty rubric. Students argued over whether he had ruined Bianca or Bianca had ruined him, which was the wrong question. They had built a small, unfair kingdom together, and the border collapsed when someone posted the map. Dr. Sun took over the final 2 tutorials. They were brutally useful. She opened every class with the rubric, explained what each band required, showed anonymized examples that were actually anonymized, and answered questions without treating curiosity like rebellion. The mood of the class changed. Not instantly into harmony. This was university, not a musical, but into something sturdier. People asked better questions when they trusted the criteria. They challenged each other's drafts against visible standards. Marco stopped apologizing before speaking. Amara became unofficially terrifying. I found myself learning the subject for the first time without the background noise of wondering whose smile was worth marks. Bianca confronted me one final time after the revised grades were released. My 86 held. Her mark, after review and penalty, landed at 62.
Passing.
Painful. Public without being officially public. She waited outside the education building under the jacaranda trees, wearing sunglasses though the sky was gray. Happy, she asked as I came down the steps. I considered lying because women are trained to soften sharp truths even for people who sharpen knives against us. A little, I said. Her mouth twisted. At least you're honest about being cruel.
No.
I'm honest about being relieved. She took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were red, but not performatively. You made everyone think I'm stupid.
No, Bianca.
The rubric made everyone see you were being graded, as if you weren't. That landed. She looked away toward the lawn where first years were lying under trees, completely unaware of our tiny academic war. He said I had potential, she said. Her voice was smaller than I expected. He said other tutors didn't understand voice. He said I was being punished by rigid criteria. For the first time, I saw the hook in her too. Favoritism flatters before it traps. It had made her arrogant, yes, but it had also made her dependent on a world where praise mattered more than proof. Maybe you do have potential, I said. Then it should survive the rubric. She laughed once, bitter and wet. You sound like Dr. Senior, good. We stood there for a moment while purple flowers dropped onto the path between us. Then she said, I did fake it sometimes. No audience. No useful tears. Just the sentence. I knew my work wasn't that good. But once someone important acted like it was, I didn't want to be the one to correct him. I nodded. That's how fake things become records. She looked at me then, really looked, and maybe for the first time saw someone she could not charm into carrying part of the blame. I'm not apologizing, she said. I didn't ask you to. She put the sunglasses back on and walked away. The formal moderation meeting happened behind closed doors, but Dr. Sun invited 2 student representatives to provide general feedback on process, and Amara dragged me into the waiting area, like I was evidence with legs. We were not allowed to discuss individual students, which was almost funny because every individual had become a walking example of the process failing. I sat outside the conference room with my palms pressed between my knees while staff voices rose and fell behind the door. The old fear returned, so suddenly, I tasted metal. Closed doors, folders, adults deciding whether your version of events had enough weight to exist. Amara noticed and nudged my shoe with hers. You okay? She whispered. I almost said yes because that was the easiest lie in any institution. Instead, I said, rooms like this used to end badly for me. She did not understand the full meaning, but she nodded as if she respected the shape of it. When we were called in, Dr. Sun asked what students needed to trust assessment again. Amara said, consistency. Marco, who had somehow been summoned too, said, specific feedback. I heard my own voice say, no private standards. If a tutor can explain a mark only in a meeting that nobody else gets, then it becomes impossible to know whether the student earned the grade or the relationship earned it. The room went very still. A senior lecturer wrote that down. Mr. Hollis was not present, but his absence sat in the corner anyway. After the meeting, I found a message from my mother. She knew nothing about rebirth, of course, and only the broad outline of the assessment mess, because I had learned to tell her problems while they were still solvable. Did the document help? She wrote. I leaned against the corridor wall and laughed quietly, because only my mother could reduce an academic scandal to the practical object at its center. Yes, I typed. The document helped. She replied. Good. Rules should not be decorations. I saved that message. Later, when people praised me for being brave, I thought about telling them bravery had felt less like courage and more like nausea with formatting. I did not post the rubric because I was fearless. I posted it because fear had taught me what silence costs. That difference mattered to me. It still does. My final grade in Edict 211 was 89, not the highest in the course. Amara got 92, which she deserved so fiercely that the whole class clapped when she posted it. Marco got 84 and sent the group chat a photo of himself, saluting the rubric. Bianca passed quietly and disappeared from elective leadership committees for the rest of the year. Dr. Sun asked me to join a student assessment advisory panel, and I almost said no because old fear whispered that visible girls become targets. Then I remembered dying invisible under a false accusation, and I said yes. The first change we recommended was simple. Every assessment page had to include the full rubric from day one, not hidden in a handbook, not paraphrased by tutors, not softened into vibes. The second change required all sample feedback to be checked for metadata and anonymized properly. The third made private draft consultations logged and capped so no student could receive secret editing disguised as mentorship. They were boring reforms. I loved them with my whole heart. People underestimate boring reforms because they do not look good in stories. But most academic injustice does not need a sword to stop it. It needs a form, a rule, a visible standard, and one student tired enough to post the PDF. I sometimes think about the first life version of me, the girl sitting in a misconduct meeting while Bianca cried and Mr. Hollis sighed about learning culture. I wish I could go back and tell her that she was not crazy, that the missing marks were real. That vague feedback can be a curtain. That when someone in power says criteria will limit authentic voice, you should ask whose voice is being protected from criteria. I cannot reach her, except maybe by living differently now. So I keep records. I ask for rubrics early. I share public documents without apology. I teach my tutoring students that feedback is not a mood, a compliment, or a mysterious gift from a teacher who likes you. Feedback is supposed to connect work to criteria so learning can move. If it does not, you're allowed to ask why. Some people call that difficult. Fine. Difficult is what people call you when you stop making unfairness comfortable. So yes, I posted the rubric. That was my whole scandal. I did not hack the gradebook, leak private emails, or stand on a desk accusing Bianca Vale of academic fraud while thunder cracked outside the windows. I uploaded a faculty-approved document to the place where the class should have been able to find it from the beginning. Bianca's faked grades collapsed because they had been built in the dark, shaped by private praise, protected by vague language, and polished by a tutor who confused favoritism with mentoring. The moment the criteria became visible, her distinction could no longer explain itself. Neither could he. In my first life, I asked for fairness privately and got framed as disruptive. In my second, I made fairness public before the lie could finish grading us. The whole class saw it together, not because I shouted, but because the rubric spoke in percentages, descriptors, and evidence bands no amount of charm could flirt with. And when Bianca's front row smile finally cracked, when Mr. Hollis had to teach from the document he buried, when our marks were measured again under the same light, I understood something that felt almost holy in its simplicity. Sometimes justice is not a dramatic reveal. Sometimes it is a link, a timestamp, and 86 students opening the same file at once.